We're going to be looking at the standard battle strategy that was used during World War I. I want you to understand both sides used the same strategy and they used it all the time. So how did a standard battle start? The first move, and we're going to have the Allies being the attackers in this case. So the Allies would bomb the German trench line for several hours. The idea here was that the trenches were supposed to collapse and kill as many of the enemy as possible, but most especially, they wanted to destroy as many of the machine guns as possible. So what were the Germans doing while this shelling was going on? Well, they're not going to just stand out there and wait for a bomb to fall on them. Instead, they were inside their trenches, and in the walls of the trenches, they had dug, well, they were called dugouts. They were like little rooms that had been dug out of the sides of the trench. Our side had these same things. So while the shelling is going on, the German soldiers are in their dugouts. Now, the guns that are used for this kind of shelling, and you see an image of one of these guns here. Look how massive these things are. They would be about 10 kilometers behind the lines, but they were able to throw the shells that incredible distance. So what happened next? Well, the Allies at a certain point would have to stop shelling because the shells weren't terribly accurate, and if they didn't stop the shelling, they'd end up killing their own men. And all the Allied soldiers who are lined up in the trenches, they're waiting for a signal, and the signal is a whistle. And the whistle blows, and everybody clambers up and out of the trenches and starts going across no man's land towards the enemy. Now, the Germans, keep in mind, they're still in their dugouts while this is going on. But as soon as they stop hearing shelling, they know that the soldiers are on their way. So, of course, right away, they jump out of their dugouts, get back to their machine guns, and they rain holy hell down on the advancing soldiers, who would not have, unless they were really, really close, they would not have gotten more than about halfway across no man's land. Now, the Allied soldiers would now have to start firing their weapons. So they're advancing. They're only about half, maybe 3/4 of the way across no man's land. They have to start firing their weapons at the German lines, which is why it was so important that they used the Lee Enfield rifle. Because at this point, when they were still using the Ross rifle, you got a lot of, bang, bang, click, because the darn thing would overheat and it would stop working. So it's really important that you had a reliable rifle. So if you survived and you made it to the German trenches, now you have to fight hand-to-hand combat. And that you might do that with your weapons, like the guns that you're carrying. The guns all had something called a bayonet, which is basically a knife that you attach to the end of the barrel, making it kind of like a sword. You might use that. You might use your fists. You might use a handy rock. Whatever. This is vicious life or death fighting at this point in time. So how do they figure out who wins in this kind of a battle? Well, the battle ends when one side or the other falls back. That means that either the Allied soldiers have to retreat or the German soldiers have to fall back. They have to move further back. Now, please understand, both sides used this tactic all the time. If you've ever played an organized team sport, I want you to imagine how dumb it would be if you ran the same play over and over and over again. But how incredibly much more stupid it would be if the other opposing team was doing exactly the same thing. This is what was going on at this point in time. So millions more men died than needed to because this was such a stupid, wasteful strategy.